Yeah, I've got almost actually 5,000 pieces of things in this office around me.
Okay, so now where is your office?
I'm in, yeah, exactly what I was saying. So I'm in Andheri, West Link Road.
Session is live.
Hey, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Are we live now?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. May I welcome you to the CII SummitFX, the first edition of the Global AVDC Summit, which focuses on innovation, acceleration, and transformation. We will now shortly begin the plenary session 2, mounting the VFX blockbusters. With growing appetite for VFX among audiences, the panel will look at addressing various myths around mounting VFX blockbusters from script to screen. What should be the do's and don'ts that a writer, screenplay writer, director, and producer keep in mind while envisioning a VFX extravaganza on the screens of today and tomorrow? Our eminent panelists include Mr. Biju Dhanapalan from VFX Supervisor, Mr. Murali Manohar Reddy, VFX Supervisor, Fiercely Creative Studio, Mr. Ronak Singharia, VFX Supervisor, Red Chilies VFX, Mr. Siddharth Jain, founder of the story. May Mr. Siddharth Jain to kindly moderate the session. Over to you, Mr. Jain.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. It's an exciting day, to have such eminent, professionals on this panel. And, I'm going to dive right in. Last week, someone reached out to me and asked me, now that the big films may not come very soon on the screen and the whole world is moving to OTT and streaming, will that make VFX faster and cheaper because you're going to watch it on the small screen? And I was like, that's not really how this works. And this explains to us, how I think while we've made so much of progress on the VFX technology side as an industry, with companies that you all run, I think, at the creator level, at the writers, the directors, the producers, there's still a lot of disconnect in terms of how best can they make use of this technology, make use of all the progress that we've made, and how will that impact a lot of content that's going to come on the small screen. And so I'll start with the most senior person on our panel, Biju. Can you give us a sense of how in the last few years the industry has sort of especially the film industry and the TV industry, how have they adapted to VFX, and what has been your sort of broad observation in a nutshell so far? Can't hear you. You're all on mute. You will all have to unmute yourselves.
Yeah, now can you hear me, Siddharth?
Yes. Yes.
Wonderful. So I was just telling, fortunately or unfortunately, I've been a part of the visual effects industry right from the beginning.
Absolutely.
It's been a great journey. I wouldn't say it was easy, bumps and ups and downs and all that. When I look back, it has really, really grown in terms of sheer volume, size, talent, all of it. But I think we have a long way to go yet. And the way I have approached film visual effects is initially I would just kind of cut off from the visual effects part and understand what the film is all about. And my second job is actually to get under the skin of the director, understand his vision of the film, then come back and, of course, the regular storyboarding and so on and so forth happens. Then look at all the resources which is available to us, including the time, the talent, the money, and so on and so forth. Then try and figure out, okay, listen, how can we just tell this story without losing out on the core of the film, not losing out on the vision of the film, and so on and so forth. That's how I've been approaching this film. And that approach, I've been continuing all the while. And now the change, what I'm seeing is people have become more exposed to visual effects. And there's a trend which says that, look, let's just make a visual effects film, which I'm not very comfortable with. No, I mean, it's my personal opinion. That's the way I've been working. Let's make a film. Visual effects, if it is required, let's just do it. That's been my approach. A lot of filmmakers have lately understood. Some of them would still kind of, hey, you being a visual effects director, how can you talk like that? But the point is that visual effects is just one of the tools what we use for making films. Let's just make films. Visual effects required? Yes, let's just do it. And I mean, technology has grown. I can't believe what a game engine is doing today. It's just unbelievable thing. I mean, I remember first frame which I rendered, which just took around 22 hours. That with 3 lights on a silicon graphics machine. That cut to, you're talking about 60, 80 frames per second, the way technology has grown up. So now people have higher expectations. It's up to us to live up to their expectations, adapt the technology for the storytelling, adapt it. And one of the efforts which I'm putting on right now is actually to take the technology to the traditional filmmaking rather than altering the traditional filmmaking to adapt the new technology, which means that technology comes a layer below.
Right.
And so we have brilliant filmmakers, we have brilliant cinematographers, we have brilliant production designers. Now I think slowly our technology is becoming matured enough to be a filmmaking tool to be given in their hands rather than we using it ourselves.
Right. But my, question is, are filmmakers equipped to collaborate in a way to make the best use of the tool?
Okay,
How have you
so
seen that in the last few years?
sure. Let me if I may, reframe the question,
Right.
or rather relook at it, the whole thing. The question is the technology grown enough to get under their skin? Is the question. Yes, there are techno-savvy directors, techno-savvy writers are there. But I think it's up to the visual effects to grow and mature, to be a tool for the filmmakers.
Right.
Can I, like, for example, if Dickens holds the camera or his favorite tool, and can he frame it? The question is that. So till now, I don't think we had that kind of a ease of use of technology.
Right. Absolutely.
So slowly it's coming towards that one. Yes. On the other end, yes, the filmmakers are also getting matured or exposed to these tools, and they are also coming out with films which require that.
Absolutely. Murli, I want to ask you this question. When you got involved in the project Bahubali, were you told, let's make a VFX film, or VFX was part of the narrative which came later? How was your approach in the beginning, and then obviously how it sort of did it get altered during the process?
Yeah. So to start with, as a Bahubali, when it was not a VFX film. It is just a film. The actor wanted to tell a story, and what are the things that he cannot build it in real. That's where the VFX has traditionally come in as a tool. But with Bahubali, what happened is we've seen the potential of the story to be told at a bigger canvas. So we basically so far all these movies have been made in a different way. Like you shoot something and say, okay, we need this, you post it off in the post. So this film, what the approach is, design it up front rather than before you go to shoot. Okay, you would know what will be the location look like, what do the costumes look like, what does the action look like. So which is the previous part of it. So design and previous. So with that, actually the scope of the film itself has changed. What has started as a single movie has become a two-part movie and with a huge budget. So that is again, you can say, okay, the budget of VFX would have gone really high because of it. Yes, it has changed the scope because the scope of the film itself has changed. Starting from a very small regional film to it has become a pan-India, pan-world film. So obviously, the budgets will be high. So if you need a blockbuster, you need to spend so much money. That's it. Because
Right.
good VFX will cost you money.
So then post Bahubali, have you all seen that in the industry, studios and producers are willing to take VFX more seriously in terms of budget, pre-production, development planning, nearly approach it with a slightly different lens because the audience is appreciating that? I mean, have you seen a considerable change in this?
Sadly, no, actually, because I would say a lot of filmmakers are still not really open about visual effects or anything, and they don't want to jump into that area to understand how do visual effects people approach film.
Yeah, that's
So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so they need to educate themselves at least in a little bit to understand what a visual effects supervisor is saying,
Hmm.
and they need to have that vision to see, okay, this is something bigger, I don't understand it, so let me at least listen to this guy who's supposed to be an expert in this.
Correct.
But people hire visual effects supervisors, they don't listen to them. So
So,
that is when the things go bad.
absolutely. And coming to you, Ronak, you worked on so many Bollywood films, and as part of Red Chillies, you have been involved across films in so many years, right? From Om Shanti Om, I remember seeing,
Yeah,
the Filmfare Awards and all of that.
correct.
So, my question to you is it important for a director to really understand VFX when they come to you and want to imagine a story like this? Or it's okay, you will find ways around it, which will be effective? How
Mhm.
does that work? How has that been experienced? I mean, do you get frustrated in meetings all the time or fewer times now?
Uh,
Frustration is there, but
no, few times now I would say. First of all, hi to you, Siddharth. Hi, Biju. Hi.
sorry, I
It's
forgot to say hi to
I'm
everyone.
so sorry. I need to say hi to him. It's like hi Murli. Like I would like to say that on record that we had collaborated together. I got a pleasure to work with Biju 15 years back on a project on a show. So and wonderful to see him after such a long time. Thank you. And so yeah, so talking about interaction with the director or director understanding the scope of VFX or kind of depth of VFX, which we are continuing with that. uh, Things have changed now. The directors and the filmmakers want to listen to you because they come to us considering that we need a certain kind of look, a certain kind of a solution towards their first of all storytelling process, if they want to enhance their visual impact of the particular sequence or a shot, or they come to us with certain shortfalls that they are not being able to shoot a certain sequence, maybe because of certain restrictions. Most of the time it can be physically impossible to shoot it, and there is another way around that it is not a viable solution on the production front. Maybe it's too expensive to build up such huge sets and then shoot a certain thing. So they definitely they come to us with that kind of a difficulty, and then we definitely talk to them and provide solutions. And as Murli was talking about the previous part, so now that the director and basically the production house gets the VFX studio involved right from the pre-planning process, right before they plan the shoot, right before the shoot dates are decided, they come to us and then we collaborate together and discuss it out as how to play this further and how to make it look interesting as well as how to optimize the budget. So we work on collaboratively on all this, making previews, and then go on set to supervise, and then things work out.
So
So
at what
definitely we
stage
discuss a
do
lot of
producers come to you, or
process.
directors come to you? At
Sorry.
what stage of the project planning do they come to you? They come to you and then
They come to us definitely after the script writing process is over. So we are a little away from the fact that we all of us are here to talk about the that how do when will that happen, that they make us a part of the team when the script is being written. So that is a little further away, I say, but then definitely the initiative has been taken. I would not say that it's completely absent, but it is not absolutely there as well. But right now they're coming to us after the script is written, passed, and they get a go ahead on shooting the film, like let's go on floor. So before going on floor, they approach us for sure. It's not after the shoot, like after a week we are shooting this, what to do. That is not the question right now.
Right.
We are in a better situation, I would say, than we were there like 14 years or 10 years back. It's better now.
Yes, so actually that's exactly what I think is the challenge. And coming back to Biju, you have worked with Raju Irani, who is the finest filmmaker in the country, and his scripts are terrific. I mean, if you read the script of Three Idiots, seamless script, right?
Sure.
So what was his approach to VFX? How did he, I mean, how does a filmmaker like him approach VFX? Can you give us some insight into that?
Sure. I mean, when I first met Raju, I think Raju's first film, which is MBBS.
Yes.
So he didn't want visual effects there because he did not trust visual effects.
And no budget, I assume.
That was not the reason. I think he spent more money on some of the set. He said, no, I want it physically there. I mean, CG looks a little bit CG. But then, yes, I mean, over a period of few interactions, then he kind of trusted us. And then onwards, I was involved in the script reading sessions. So as Ronak mentioned, the current film I'm working, I started working before the script is written.
Okay.
So those days, Ronak, good days are coming.
Great to hear that. Happy.
Is it because of COVID?
Good question. But
available for Zoom call. Let's do that.
No, thankfully, we have taken it as a slightly different fashion, because earlier when I was working with another film, there was a first draft of script was made, and then it was given to us. We visualized the spaces, visualized scenes, sequences, which went back to the director and the writer, and they rewrote certain scenes. They added certain sequences. So it was a back and forth process. A few times, 4 or 5 times we did that. And of course, by the time, what happens is that it just, because I mean, to me, it's an amazing thing that somebody can write a film. I mean, in my mind, I don't know how they write it, but they do write it. And I would treat the script as just a guideline, because to me, script is not a film.
Right.
And there is much more to come in. Script is probably kind of all to orient a lot of stakeholders in the filmmaking into a direction. So it became a more of, we would call that as a visual scripting. Once a script is done and then we create visuals, then the story remains the same, but the content, the meat of the story changes depending on what we were visualizing.
So if I may just interrupt you for a moment. So at that stage, does the producer have an idea of what will be the approximate budget that will be required?
So producer becomes always his eyebrows are always like this, because when he sees image, how are we going to do this? Right. Immediately, ting, 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 his calculation. Then he'll call me on one side, how much would it cost? I said, right. Hold on, we haven't reached there. When will we reach there? So slowly, the gun starts coming onto my head. So most of the time, the budgeting, what I have done is, look, listen, this film can be done with a small amount as well as a big amount. So if you ask me a question, I can just tell one random number, which is depending on my mood. Right. If I think I can spend a little more money, then I'll throw a larger figure. Then let's not take that route. let's sit and say, look, this is the amount which we can spend for visual effects. I mean, if we have a lot of possibilities, then we work within that budget and say, look, what's the best we can achieve? Maybe a little lesser real sets and a little more of a CG, or maybe the other way around, and so on and so forth. But always the budget becomes a little bit of a issue. And 75% of the time, fix a budget, let's just work within that one. That becomes more practical.
That's 75% of the times.
Yes.
So, Murli, I assume your projects are in the 25% where there is no budget. Just do what you want to do. Is that how
No.
life now?
No, it is not like that. See, typically producers' approach is they'll start with how much will it cost, because director's approach will be how can we do it, how can you make it better, and all that. The producer is okay. He'll be watching and he'll say, okay, how much will it cost me?
With eyebrows?
Yeah. The real answer is actually, so budget is relative to the potential returns of a film. So how much the producer want to spend, he knows the market better. Okay. So that he knows, well, okay, if I spend X amount of money, will I get X plus Y amount of money? So that is the budget that they will be working on, regardless of whether it is a multi-crore thing or a smaller film. Where VFX can come in is if they are involved in the starting stages of the film, they can help you make that super high VFX film, or within the budget constraints that you have, we can find an innovative way to tell the same story without compromising the story. So because VFX is it's a visual storytelling. The entire filmmaking is a storytelling, visual storytelling. So you cannot eliminate VFX from anything right now, because we are involved in at every stage. So it's better we get involved in it earlier so that we can give you a better solutions.
True.
So that you can cut down a lot of wastage.
Right. So, Ronak, you guys are producers and you're a VFX studio.
Right.
We all sit in different buildings now.
Yes,
But,
we do.
it's the same. If, all roads lead to the same, superstar in a company. So,
Yes.
does that make it easy? Because, I'm assuming now, Red Chillies has so many projects in the pipeline.
Mhm.
They're developing certain stories. I'm working, discussing stories with them.
Yeah.
And what are they coming to you early because it's kind of more accessible in-house, or it's still like how the industry operates? Are you seeing a change, or is there a benefit of being a producer and a VFX house?
I have the same stand here. However, like as you just suggested, that it's a part of the same company, so we are division and a part of Red Chillies. So definitely that access is there, and and they know. And in fact, whatever we are talking right now, we've been talking to that side or with that building guys, years back, and then that message has already put across a long time back, and so they are aware.
It's not being received.
And no, it has been received. So that's the reason I'm telling you the doors are open, and this message has been passed across a long time back, and they definitely contact us while the writing process is going on. So on that front, definitely there is a lot more communication, because it's that way. And so that is the best part of associating with a production house, so that we can reach out to the production house for certain things, and the production house reaches us, and just can discuss things. So that's better. And I have definitely not say, as Biju also pointed it out, I would not say that the doors are closed or they are approaching us later, but then that's in the process. The days are gonna come soon that while writing, things would be discussed, and how to make it look appropriate for the audience, and whereas not even shoot up the budget so much that the filmmaking itself becomes a big task or a hurdle while envisioning a film. So that's how it is.
So, I have another question for you, Ron, and I've been curious about it. I'm assuming you're also doing the VFX for the series that Red Chillies is producing
Yes, we are.
on Netflix and
Correct.
platform.
Yes.
Does VFX become more challenging for episodic series because there are so many hours, that one project is more than a feature film, or is it not the way it seems?
No, it is in a way. Now, see, because there are certain things, there is a certain premium quality of expectation that has built up you know, that Netflix and similar other OTT platforms has built up, you know, because everyone looking at Netflix originals or any other similar OTT platform original series, they are looking for a certain quality, and this OTT platforms are maintaining as well at that quality. So there is nothing like you know, like it used to happen in the television medium, that this can pass off or this cannot pass off. There is certain quality, bare minimum quality, which is expected. And I would bring in another thing that you just started off the discussion with, that on smaller screens it's better or easier. No, it doesn't.
Exactly.
Because just sharing with you that all the OTT platforms are soon gonna ask for 4K output, and 4K output is never gonna be like small screen, big screen.
Exactly.
So it has to be compatible with the 4K television screens available in the market. So even if people, 80% of the people watch it on the mobile phones, but still the output or the content has to be made which is compatible with the bigger screen. So here we are not kind of, you know, there is no compromise which is kind of visible to us. And on the episodics also, the quality that is expected is the same. It's the duration which is longer, but now it is very well planned. The episodics are also planned in a nice fashion. They are not haphazardly. So an episodic deliveries are not planted in a way a film deliveries are planted. You know, there is enough time and enough and a proper scheduling done from their end as well as from our end, from then it is delivered. So it is not a panic situation, but the quality definitely is maintained, and that has to be ensured by both the parties.
Correct.
And it is being done that way.
Right. Biju, you've seen so many ups and downs, good cycles, bad cycles, companies starting, shutting, starting again.
Yep.
And you know how, like, you know, with this new, because of COVID, so much of, you know, focus now on OTT streaming series. What is your instinct telling you? Will this be a better opportunity because the volume of work might increase, or how are you looking at this whole shift to OTT in terms of a business opportunity, career perspective for the whole VFX industry as a whole?
I think there will be an upward movement
Hmm.
because appetite for content has definitely increased. And, you know, ever since television has come up, everyone is told that cinemas will shut down. But I don't think it has happened.
Yeah.
Yes, there could be some kind of fluctuation, and that period of downside might be a little longer or shorter.
Right.
But cinema watching experience in a theater is a different thing. I mean, it's just not watching a film, but it's so much more goes into it. So I think cinema is going to remain. Maybe it has to reinvent the experiences a little bit as the time goes, which we have done always along the time. So I mean, OTT will definitely has increased the content appetite for content
And
more.
I keep hearing that a lot of big films could probably come as OTT series or OTT, you know, films,
Yes.
and they want to push the envelope more on the production side and visual side, and
Yes.
spend more money on the VFX.
Absolutely. That's what's going on right now.
Yes.
I think the production quality, the expectations out of OTT has become high because it is competing with any other, you know, the best films across the world.
Right.
So you better live up to that. Otherwise, no.
Absolutely. And, you know, Murli, coming to you, I mean, you know, South has always been a little more ahead in terms of, you know, pushing the envelope
No.
on the whole visual side and, you know, trying to do much more. So how is it down south now? I mean, is the momentum really gone up? And like, do you interact with producers from Bombay and South? And
Yes.
how does that comparison work?
It, if I should say that people from South are a little more crazy about telling fantasy stories. Okay? So they tend to, film means it's a film, it's an experience. Like as Biju said, movies are a collective experience.
Right.
So they tend to tell their stories on a bigger canvas, and they want to make it more bigger. And film down south is more like a religion. So so it is, the people are do approach, and they have a really what do you call, innovative ideas how they can take it to the bigger screen and all. So we are there constantly helping them and guiding them actually. So we do hear from Bollywood studios also, but majority of our work are from South, because we have way too much happening over here itself.
Right, of course. I get a lot of writers and directors who are looking for stories and books and scripts to adapt. And, a lot of them are very sort of kind of confused when they are making their choices. And the moment something goes in mythology, period, or a lot of action, they start getting a little fearful. And, and they're sort of confused how to approach the process of storytelling or developing. I mean, based on your experiences, are there any things, pointers that you would just want to give as tips to writers and directors while they're thinking and creating their stories? Or, some kind of, I would say, advice on maybe these things are not expensive, these things are expensive, or these things are easier to do, not easy to do. I mean, any broad strokes that people can keep in mind at the creating process? And I'll start with you, Biju.
All right. So to answer that question, a lot of responsibility actually lies on the visual effects industry also.
Hmm.
Okay? So if a director or producer is thinking twice, can they do it? So it's a kind of questioning the visual effects industry as well.
Hmm.
I do see that we need to, because straight away the comparison is with Hollywood. Yeah, when this question is something which I get always. When do we reach their status? So the answer is simple. We'll never. The reason being that Hollywood is not a place.
Yeah.
It's a geographically it's a place, but yes, but the best people from across the world happen to be there, and they do that work, and naturally it has to be the best in the world. So we will be a step behind unless otherwise we attract those talent into our industry.
Right.
Okay? Being said that, and again at the same time, we have that kind of a budget? We don't have that kind of a budget. Why? Because the returns are not there. Why we can't sell that kind of, globally we can't achieve that. So it's a chicken and egg situation. Yeah. So being said that, the onus is, again, I think we can bridge, or actually we can reduce the gap by attracting better talents into our industry. For a simple example, I remember earlier days, the animators or the visual effects guys who would come and join the industry did not get any other job. So this seemed to be a easy way to get into something. But things are not like that. I mean, today, yes, of course, times have changed. I still find it difficult to get good coders, good programmers to do some technical stuff in our industry. But it's not, I mean, we have a lot of coding guys across the country. 35% of, I was told that 35% of Microsoft are Indian guys. Yeah. So why are we not able to get a bunch of coders, which forms a critical mass in our production line? So these are some questions which we need to ask ourselves and kind of figure out ways to attract this better talent. Then these doubts, these question marks, these eyebrows going like that will straighten up to a great extent.
Right.
I think charity begins at home. I think we need to kind of pull up our sock and say, look, listen guys, we are there to deliver. You imagine, we'll deliver.
But any tips, like Ronak and Murli, any tips to imagination for writers and directors? Or what things they like, for example, I've heard like over the years, like fur is very expensive, think non-fur, so I mean, are there like some basic, like broad strokes that you want to add to what Viju just said?
They are certainly all the performances of creatures and all things is little expensive, but I think that should not restrict a writer to write a story. Actually, maybe down the line you can, instead of going for a digital creature, you can go with a prosthetic or anything else. So you can have an innovative ways of executing the same story. But if you start compromising all those things at the writing of a story stage, then I don't think so we will ever make a bigger film.
True.
So and on top of that, if they themselves educate a little more, okay, what does the VFX cost more? Like with creatures or a digital camera move, digital sets and all those things, or really end of the world kind of what you call simulations kind of a thing, they'll cost more. So by stories writers, directors, or producers, if they can understand what takes how much effort to do it, they will know. Because you would not go and ask a Hollywood studio, VFX studio, ask them to cut budget, isn't it?
Yes.
Because and you should not show those references and ask an Indian studio to execute the same quality within a fraction of a budget. So it is basically you need to educate yourself, all these guys, to listen to these VFX supervisors, or just go and sit there in their studios and get trained.
Mm.
So that will actually give them an introduction to understand what a visual effects supervisor or a studio is saying to them regarding their story.
Absolutely.
Can I just pitch in there for a
Yes,
moment?
absolutely.
So, like adding to Murli, and just kind of another viewpoint also, is that, for example, why would FERC or animal animation cost more? If you look at the computing power, we don't need too much of computing power there, right? So why would it cost more? Because I think there are very less people in our country to do an animation, and primarily because we are kind of faced with anatomy, the way it moves, and so on and so forth. So we need to get a better talent. I think the cost can come down because I don't see that amount of computing or any other resources going into that one. Point number one. Another thing is that it will be, see, the director, the producer, and the visual effects guy working hand in hand. Initially, when I started talking, I said, look, first I'll just cut off myself from the visual effects point of view. Then I would work with them, like, for example, the script. I mean, I was just completely thinking along with the director and the writer, how would the story flow? Then we would come back and say, look, develop the sequences and say, look, I think Raju or anybody say, look, this is going to cost a little too much. Can we design a sequence? So they don't turn around and say, or they should have told you at the beginning, what's the point in coming and telling me right now? They never do that one. So we sit together and then sort it out without hurting the story, without hurting the vision of the film, and then fit the whole thing into so. And if we, one of the flip side of them knowing visual effects, what is possible and what is not, kind of affect the storytelling at the end of the day that reflects somewhere. So I generally cut them off from that. Forget how we're going to do it. We might do it, we might not do it. How do you want this film to be ideal? Don't come back and tell me that we want Lord of the Rings. No, that's not what we are going to make. What is the film you want to make? You come up with that. We'll figure out. There could be some amount of portions which we can't do it. So there's both sides. I mean, they knowing how to do it, what to do it, might hinder them in their creative process.
Correct.
And I would also like to bring one point here that suppose, when a writer is writing or a director is visioning his film, there should not be a set box or a cage around them that, okay, I can do only this much, I can do only that much. I will just give you a very flat and normal example that once we've seen this in Hollywood as well as in the Indian film industry, when the projects or the films are targeted to bring in a certain to bring in that genre in a certain way, that okay, we have to make this entertainer to earn this much money, and we will follow that. So when everything goes into that, to follow a certain structure, one, we have to earn money, one, we have to just cater to this audience, and we have to make a film only like this, then it will work. So whenever that kind of an intention is there, you do not get a super hit film or a successful film. So this is a flat filmmaking process where this is flawed. Same way it happens in visual effects as well. So if there are too many restrictions while writing the story, we will not get the desired story. We will not get it to that high. We'll not get that much up.
The same things will keep happening again because
Correct.
keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So my guess is that because also COVID might take time for people to travel and go to various locations. I think there might be a lot of stories which might want to see if they can shoot in a studio against a green screen, and and find other ways of working around. In your experience, Are actors and directors used to working like that, or do they have problems? Like, I'm sure you've been on set for a bunch of, so any things that you want to talk about or highlight, practical problems that people face during the shoots?
uh, in the shoots while working, I don't think so. Once you get used to the chroma setups, you definitely get the people or the actors who are first timers on the chroma set and they are not aware of what's going to happen. It becomes a little, they take a little time to get comfortable with it. Maybe one sequence or maybe one day. That depends upon their understanding. But once they are into it, they get used to it. I mean, there are a lot of films, like just talking about Pan or Zero, where I mean, SRK has been doing this for a very long time, but there were other actors also who had to perform, maybe without the lead actor at some point of time. But
Right.
they because of the shot requires that particular performance to be in that way without the actual actor being in front of you, you have to perform it. You do not have a choice, right? So that's a learning process. Of course, it will take certain time, but once the actor gets comfortable to it, they do it. I mean, in on a lot of Hollywood blockbusters also, as you see, there are a lot of chroma screens. There is nothing around, and especially the creatures, they are not around them, and they still have to visualize and act as per things which are not happening in front of them. That's a learning part. Can't help. It is challenging, but they have to go through that process.
Did you any on-set experiences,
Yeah.
insights you had that you want to share with us?
I mean, green screen shoots, I hate it, but unfortunately, that's a place where we have to be. For the simple reason that, like what Ronak said, filmmaking being a very collaborative process on location, there are a lot of improvement, which as far as the cinematographer brings in, the director, the actor, everybody brings in, their input into it and improvise that one.
Yeah.
Which usually goes for a toss in green screen. And they trust you for what you say, and they just do it. And so at some point of time, the spotlight is on me for wrong reasons. So I get completely flustered. So, okay, they listen to me. I'll tell, okay, after this, you jump from here to this and here. But the way they would jump on a real location and the way the cinematographer would frame the same location becomes a different thing. For example, I know a lot of visual effects shots, there'll be 300 cinematographers, which are compositors. So the final frame is composed by the compositors, not the cinematographer. Yeah, and towards the end of the film, the release of the film, everybody just running helter-skelter. Cinematographer goes for a toss, nothing works. So there are 300 cinematographers. Onwards to acting, reacting, timing, just to get the timing of let's say if a double role, to get the timing, that's a challenge.
Right.
Wherein in a real filming, that's not a challenge. You told a dialogue, the counter person told another one, then it flows naturally. So a lot of effort just goes into just reducing the problems. Bring it to, I usually say, okay, fantastic. Today, zero, we have reached zero level. Means there was no problem. Like 3 days in a year, like that.
Right.
Otherwise, we are on negative 22.
Murli, any experiences?
Yeah. See, what happens is acting is a straightforward, intuitive reaction thing. So most of the actors with the green screen, they lose that to react to certain things and look at certain things because they don't know where to look at because everything is green. So that throws them off quite often, actually. So, but that is one thing that I think it's VFX in India itself is more than 20 years old. So the actors needs to adapt to that thing. The same way, even the technology is also adapting to make comfort, like virtual production right now with Unreal Engine and all. You can bring the set to indoor. So which will actually help the cinematographer see what he's framing. The actor knows where the location is and all those. So the technology is also trying to cover up that gap. There's the same way, even the rest of the technicians, whether it could be actors or directors, also needs to understand how to utilize this technology to tell the stories. So, but there will be a lot of discomfort because everything is new. Every shot, every day is new for everybody.
Correct.
So you will have to adapt on the set and then improvise.
So I'm assuming the two components of doing VFX are obviously technology and the technicians. The general, assumption is that technology is making things faster and cheaper, while the technicians are obviously, getting more and more expensive. So overall, is the VFX cost going down, or is it going up, or where is the industry? How's that positioned for you, and where do you see the trend going?
See, if I can start, VFX is a services industry to start with.
Right.
So regardless of whether the costs are going up or down, your billing will always go down. So you did it for, let's say, X amount of money in the previous film, you would have to think how you can, the people will ask you for, can you do it for so much less? So being a services industry, that is one of the disadvantages that you have. And the other thing is, when it comes to the tools and all those things, they are very expensive. They're nowhere going cheaper. So every year there'll be a hike in the price of the softwares, and that occupies the major amount of your expenses. End of the day, when you come to like how much you pay to the VFX artist, I think we pay very less compared to the other studios like Hollywood studios or anything. So that is totally to do with the kind of films that we do and the budgets of film and all those things. So it forces us to reinvent the workflows. So we cannot do things how anybody else does it. So how can we use the same tools, push the tools to the next stream, and reinvent the entire workflow so that you can cut down the cost. And this is a constant process, regardless of whether there is a budget for the film or there's no budget for the film.
Got it. Ronald, do you want to add anything to this?
A bit, not much though, but as Murli rightly put it, that things are getting expensive, and in each and every project you were expected to optimize on the cost. And normally what is shown in the Indian industry, that it's like always we have to always keep on optimizing the cost to adhere to the requirements of the filmmakers. Rather, there is not a substantial amount of effort being put into let's do there is two ways in things happen in Hollywood, that they keep on continuously developing and innovating, and they invest a lot of time, effort and money behind innovating and reaching somewhere, but they are innovating and reaching somewhere with the kind of work they get. So they get into that process as well as they do on the optimizing process also. But I do agree with Murli on this front, that on our end, that the balance between the innovation and optimization is not as much as the Hollywood industry has. So that is a little thing that can be worked upon. Like it can be made better for sure in future.
Biju, is there more collaboration happening now? Given so many years, people have now known each other. Filmmakers know, all of you. So, do you see more collaboration now happening, and people more organically, let's come together and make something better?
Yes. I think pretty much off late, or rather in the last 10 or 15 years, I would say 15 years, all my projects have been like that.
Okay.
So my initial days, I used to be called the computer wala. Computer wala. Oh, on location. Oh, kahan hai? Computer wala kahan gaya, actually. So that was the approach.
You're the only person on set with the computer.
No, because the work is done on a computer. But that has changed quite a bit. That's why the last film, what I'm doing, even before the script was written, we started collaborating, and the script was written. Now we are doing the visual scripting of the whole film. There could be changes in the script and so on and so forth. So and my effort today is not just in doing visual effects. My effort is actually in developing some certain technologies such that the filmmakers can use it with their own hands. So when you go on a real location, on a recce, why do we go on a recce? Because there we go and just do the recce such that you know your shot division, you know what's going to come from there. You would change some certain shots and so on and so forth. Visual effects, when you're doing it, it just becomes the set pattern. It's very little leeway for the creative things to come on location. So I just would like to change that one, or rather how much ever we can change, such that the filmmaker, the cinematographer, the performer, everybody are themselves familiar with their own tools. So hopefully we should be able to do it.
So, when you all get, scripts and you all give feedback to writers and directors of, trying to make changes, making more effective, is that process getting better? Are writers and directors more open to thinking with you once they've crossed a certain top end on the rewrites? How is that process, and is there anything you'd like to talk about that?
Sure. I think last 10 years that's happened all through my projects. We get a script, we
So you're saying Bollywood had scripts 10 years ago? Called for narration was my next question.
Oh, I'm caught. Yes, there were scripts, including Raju's. So we would come back and probably sketch certain scenes and the way we saw it, and there are some certain occasions where they've changed based on the visuals. And of course, there were cases where we couldn't do it because it was too expensive, resources were not available. Then we could sit together and figure out another way of telling the same story part in a slightly different way. So it's always happened with me. I mean, usually I don't take films otherwise.
Right. Murli, have you worked on films where the script is still not ready and you've been asked to give a budget and also start thinking creatively and start drawing things?
No, certainly. We actually don't accept those kind of films.
Oh.
We also get involved at a very early stage.
But is this, you don't accept those scripts pre-Bahubali or post-Bahubali?
No, it is pre-Bahubali. Right from like past 17 years, that's how we've been working. We've been working along with the director and the story writers to make it happen. So along the way, we had to teach them a lot certain things. So we are willing to do it. So not having, because it is ultimately you're building a imagination thing.
Of course.
You need to get everybody on board, and everything is not made. Everybody needs to imagine and do it. So what happens is the director and the story writer or a cinematographer or VFX supervisor all needs to align to one kind of visual thought.
Absolutely.
So because you don't have an option, okay, give me 5 options, I'll choose one. So that is not a cost-effective one, or it is not the right way to do things. So you need to set a language, like visual script, or set a language for that film and then work towards it. And it is a collaborative process. It is not an individual process at all. So
right, absolutely. Ronak, do you have any experiences of working with partial scripts, no scripts, narrations?
Not really.
All the time.
Not really, and not all the time. No. We get the scripts, but yeah, I would just put this point across in a different way, that are we when do we get involved in such things like where there is a very bleak idea of what needs to be done, what the story is gonna go, where it's gonna go, but we still need a rough budget. If we write this, how much will the budget
cost?
So
yeah.
this kind of situations do come across. So depending upon the client and his approach towards it, then we definitely work things out to give a rough estimate to that
So make some
client.
assumptions, and based on
So based on the assumptions, we do have to give out certain details so that they know whether they would be able to pull it off, right before the script is done, rather than they repenting that why did we spend so much time in writing, now the execution seems very difficult and there will not be anyone who would back this project with so much of investment in VFX. So in those kind of scenarios, definitely we help the filmmakers out in making them understand as to, okay, so this are possibilities and this are no possibility thing with the kind of budgets you are looking or with the kind of scope you're looking at.
And are you all happy with the kind of scripts that come to you sometimes in terms of not creatively, but I'm saying, I mean, is the graph of excitement for you on the work front increasing, or you think the industry at the writing stage needs to do much better? Is it like boring for you to go to office and read the script?
No, I think the graph is very spiky in the
Non-written
lines.
also.
Yeah, graph is very spiky, I would say. Like you know, films like, I mean, there are two films that were very loudly discussed, like Munna and Bahubali. Like this kind of films do not happen every month or every year, I would say. Like this kind of films happen like once in 2 years, you know, but once in 2 years. But so many films are made during the year, in 12 months, so many releases. Each and every film will definitely not have this kind of challenge, or, you know, I mean, you talk about the script,
Yes,
or you
the
talk about
budget.
the VFX or
Yeah.
the budget, everything in the right way. I mean, it doesn't happen every day. You do not have a Lagan, Munna by MBBS, or a Dil Chahta made each and every year. You know, I mean, even if you just consider the awards, this kind of films doesn't get made each and every year. So definitely there is a mixed platter that you come across, and certain things are exciting. So in a way, certain ways the challenges are more exciting, or certain ways the films are more exciting to work. I would just bring up film Chak De India, in which we worked. So we were a part of making the crowd multiplications and doing scoreboards and stuff. But the film was so beautiful, and we enjoyed working on it. And after watching the film, I mean, I still love it as a sports film. You know, one of those sports films made by India, produced in India, which I'm really happy and proud to be a part of such projects. So there are two things which drive us, you know, VFX challenges, as well as it's a good film. All of us are film lovers anyway. So once the cinema is in the right way, it is made the right way, we always enjoy working on it.
Right.
Recently, I worked on Shikara, which is a very beautiful film. I mean, it has not a great scope of VFX, but the film is beautiful. The film is told in a nice way. So I enjoyed working on it.
So, you know, these days there's a huge trend of people looking at books as source material for stories and they wanting to adapt them for film or series. So, you know, Biju, has anybody come to you with a book and saying, here's a book, read the book and tell us what will this cost and can you make this?
Not yet. People think I can't read.
We will show you links to animation films then. But nobody has done that so far.
No one has done
Yeah.
gone that far with me, at least.
Only with you. I mean, now Bahubali is being made, the books.
No, we did come across quite a few directors want to adapt stories, especially from Malayalam.
Uh-huh.
So yes, we did help them to estimate the budget and the process of doing that and all those.
So at the book stage, or they wrote a script and then they came to you?
No, at the book stage itself.
Okay.
Because they need to understand what will be the scope of this film, like if you want to adapt it to a visual medium.
So then you
they want
the book and then came back with.
Yeah. So that's why we. I think most of the VFX supervisors will be avid readers also. Yeah. So they read a lot. Either it could be a technical documentation or the story scripts and all. So we need to learn and adapt, and how do you read any story and visualize it and all that.
Right.
So, yes.
Yeah, because I think that's really, you know, at my end, that's really picked up a lot. And, you know, there are at least 20 plus books that I've set up, which are heavily dependent on the VFX for the execution. And I think the producers are trying to figure that bit out first. You know, can this be made in a reasonable budget that they can put together? Because if not, then that becomes the challenge for the whole project as a whole. Yeah. And like Ronak, at your end, do people, have you noticed this trend of people coming with books without scripts, trying to just gauge, because you guys are more accessible sitting here?
Not really. Not really. They haven't approached with books yet, but yeah, they definitely come up with concepts that this is what we are planning to do. I mean, they come up with certain presentations of this is what we are looking at. Like, if we develop this, how much would it cost? As I just said earlier as well.
Yeah, but that's still very broadly based on assumptions.
Based on assumptions, yeah. But yeah, if you read an entire book and then you, a couple of times we have come across such things, but it is not still a book. It's most of the time it's a kind of a referencing that has been done and a presentation made.
But if somebody would come to you with a book, with a novel,
yeah,
that we want to adapt this for a film, read it and come back with a broad? Like, would you be able to do that? Would you do that?
Of course. Why not? We would be able to do that because it's I mean, I know reading a book takes longer than reading a script, because
Right.
script is just written like it's 90, 100 or 150 pages, but the novel is quite big. But then we just need to keep enough patience and then read it out and then put things on paper. Otherwise, we keep on doing all these things, in a regular
Right.
walk of life, as been reading the scripts and breaking it down. So most of the time we also point out, like, okay, these are the possible VFX sequences in your film. So that kind of proposal also we might, or suggestions we have to give to the clients approaching us. So this is of course, the novel is an elaborative medium, and then
Of
it will
course.
just make the process a little longer, but it is very much possible, I would say.
Like, it's just an example of, I mean, it's a detailed story. So, the scope of things. So, trying to, like, sum up this thing.
So that before that, what is your experience with
With,
visual effects, guys?
well, my
Yeah,
experience
good question.
over the years, I think I really feel the problem is more at the writer director end, because I have seen a lot of pitches and people trying to set up projects without giving enough information to the VFX supervisor, VFX producer, and not giving enough, I would say, clarity of thought and vision, and then expecting them to come up with a budget based on assumptions, and then when they are writing it, they forget all those assumptions, and I think there is a gap there which I have noticed. But I also feel that now, with the whole stress on trying to create something visually more exciting and high concept, I think newer generation of writers directors want to create something visually impactful. I think they are trying their best to think how, and I just feel there is a gap of enough people interacting with each other on a daily basis.
True.
It's very like there is a VFX studio. The writers have a different group. The directors are mingling in a different group. There's not enough constant exchange of information, experiences, tips, and just discussions. And I feel that needs to go up, because I see a lot of ignorance at our end, at the producer side, and and the writer director side. A lot of things, people will keep watching the making of these Hollywood films on YouTube and think that is how things have to be done. And that's how things, it's a very unrealistic sometimes estimate of what the industry is. And I think we are in a time now where collaboration is most important. And
I sorry.
so I was just saying that collaboration is so important that it's important to pick the right story and collaborate right from that stage in picking the story. For example, if I have options of 5 stories that I really love, which one should I pick? Should be a collaborative process organically right from that stage, because I think it should also challenge you and excite you to work on something. Even creatively, be very excited to get something going. That I don't see that enough, and I'm hoping that will be really the theme for the next few years.
Do you think that we mostly the writing part comes into the pre-production stage and VFX comes into the post-production, even though we are always talking about collaborating during the work process, but largely as the segment wise, if you see, the writing stage is a pre-production stage, a very pre-production stage of a filmmaking, and VFX comes into post dominantly.
So
So I'm
fortunately, yeah.
just is it just because of that one factor where we are not meeting up? I mean, there are very few writers, as you say, the collaboration, or rather it's not, the meeting is not happening, the discussions are not happening, maybe because people are not meeting there.
I think access is a big problem.
Right.
I think access, and the whole thing that if we will reach out, because see, at your end also, how much material can you read and give free advice to people and tell them the budget? It's not possible. So you will want to meet that filmmaker who you have worked with before. You have a rapport and you know the seriousness of the intent. Because the challenge is there is too many people wanting this information. So I think there needs to be a way to filter this. And I think agencies or story companies like mine, or I don't know, somebody has to help figure this out. I think there needs to be some mechanism where, so, I think books is a great way, because I think producers who buy the book rights, at least you know that the producer is committed because he's paid for the book rights. Now the book rights is there, that means you have all the story completely detailed out. So I think at that stage, it is important to go to a VFX house before you even start the development of the scripts. And it'll be great if, we have a story, But before the scripts are written, the writers can spend a week with the VFX producers, talk, brainstorm, get their ideas, thoughts, and then start writing the screenplay. So then you
Yeah,
know
makes sense.
with greater precision. I think I've seen that in LA. That happens a lot, in the US, where at a very early stage, producers will, at the story stage, have initial conversations, and writers, know a lot about VFX. And I think there's a little more awareness there as to how to make the best of the medium. If you say that certain technique can be done at a cost-effective rate, maybe that technique can be used more in the screenplay. So I don't know. I mean, even for me, I think knowledge is still a lot of is hearsay, what we read on the internet, and kind of, I think, floating.
I think what you said, collaboration is one of the most important aspects. I think we kind of miss out on this one. Usually it is a formal meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, now the producer definitely wants to know, okay, how much would it cost?
Right.
So the director doubts the visual effects guys and say, look, will they pull it off?
Yeah.
So we are all standing in, on a defensive and offensive situation usually.
Yes. And also, I think sometimes it's like a black hole. If you will say something the producer will cost so much, he doesn't know. How will he evaluate that?
Correct.
Right? Don't you feel that? Don't you see that expression sometimes?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
you're just overquoting me.
He mentioned the eyebrows already in the beginning of the session.
And not just the writer, producer, director, but on the other side also. I felt visual effects being completely an interdisciplinary or a multidisciplinary art form per se.
Yeah.
It also need to kind of engage with a lot of other aspects. I mean, I can't imagine, probably filmmaking is one area where it's completely multidisciplinary as much as visual effects. You're dealing with stunt guys to software engineers to mathematics guys to everybody. So collaboration, as you would correct.
Yeah, and I think that thought needs to go that it's an engineering job only. I think somehow people think it's just using software.
No, it is not.
It is not, because you also need to understand the language of film and storytelling.
Absolutely.
I think, and that I think collaboration, I think there needs to be a platform where at least people meet every few months, if not every few weeks, and exchange
Unfortunately, the bars are closed.
Yes.
But anyway, I think.
No, you have a very valid point. I think it's time that we should kind of build some kind of a platform, informal platform.
Informal platform, yeah.
Which is the most productive this thing I've figured out. Like
now coffee shops also close, everything shut.
Absolutely, everything shut.
Is the only platform available for this.
Yeah. No. Even when everything opens up, if you're not collaborating and creating new ideas where you can bring out people to theaters, then they are stuck to OTTs only.
Yeah.
So you would eventually need to collaborate with a lot of people.
True.
To tell a story which can be enjoyed only on a bigger screen. And that's where the fun is actually.
So let's hope for the big screen to come back into our life very soon. I think on this note, our time is up. Let's wrap. And thank you so much for coming on this panel and spending your time and sharing your experiences. And hope to see you all soon and mingle more with you guys.
Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Lovely
listening
to all of you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you, panelists, for joining and for this interesting conversation. We look forward to your continued support and engagement on the CII platform. Thank you so much. Be safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed.